Hi everyone, welcome to Glen Yoga. My name's Rachel and this is a slightly different video for today. What I wanted to do is take a little bit of time to talk you through how Yin Yoga differs from some of the other types of yoga that you might have practiced before. If you're a beginner to Yin Yoga, then this video is really helpful just in giving you a little bit of context around why we do the poses in the way that we do, what we're trying to achieve with them, and what some of the benefits might be for you in trying Yin Yoga. So a couple of main differences. I guess the first one is that where we're using our muscles and muscular effort in some of the other types of yoga that you might be familiar with, the likes of Hatha Yoga, Vinyasa Yoga, where you're moving through a flow, you're moving from pose to pose to pose, and kind of using our muscles, using our strength in moving from those poses is quite common. And also that type of yoga or those types of yoga will also aid us to build strength as well as we move through those flows. The difference with Yin Yoga is that we're not using any muscular effort. So you'll notice in a lot of the poses that I show you that either we're allowing gravity to do absolutely all of the work for us, or we're using props, or we're maybe engaging a tiny little bit of muscular effort just to hold the shape, but the muscular effort is not the main focus of the pose that we're doing. So you'll find, for example, perhaps in Sphinx pose, when we're coming over onto our stomachs and holding ourselves up onto our forearms and gazing forward, we're obviously engaging some part of our arms in order to hold ourselves up. But the main focus of that pose is still stillness. We're still not trying to move from one pose to another, engage our muscles in doing so, and engaging our strength when moving from pose to pose. So muscular effort is at a minimum. And what that allows us to do is it allows the pose to really work on some of the other parts of our body and some of the other parts of our body that aid movement and mobility. So it gets us to focus in more on the connective tissues. So all of those things that help our muscles and bones work in the way we want them to, and keeps our motion and mobility good and healthy. So I live with multiple sclerosis. So one of the most important things for me is mobility, and it is kind of guaranteeing the health of my mobility as I move forward in life and make sure that my kind of range of motion is as good as it can be. And as well as working on the muscles, working on the connective tissue as well can really aid that. So we're talking about things like the ligaments, the cartilage, the tendons, the fascia that covers kind of all of our organs and all of our muscles. So it's just really giving us an opportunity to work on those areas of our body, those things that aid movement that perhaps a lot of other activity doesn't quite give us that time to do so. And the reason we can really get into those areas of the body is because we're holding those poses for a little bit longer. Because we're not moving from pose to pose to pose in quite a quick succession, we're spending a little bit of time just melting into the pose and allowing the time for the pose to really have that action on the connective tissue and really help us to support and strengthen that a little bit more. So if you're the sort of person who does lots of other activity besides yoga, then actually doing some yin alongside that could be really, really effective for you and give that kind of balance to what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, and make sure that you're taking care of those other parts of your body that can actually really aid the development of strength and the development of your motion in other activities. So that's one of the really big differences with yin as opposed to some other activity and certainly some other types of yoga. I guess alongside that is the timing, and I mentioned there just before that the reason we can get into that connective tissue is because we're holding the poses for that little bit longer, and we're allowing the body to kind of sink into each of the poses and get the most from it that it can. So you'll notice with yin that most poses are held for somewhere between 3 to 5 minutes. You might find practices where it's even a little bit longer than that. Some of the sessions that you might see are kind of extra long hold sessions where you might be looking at more 7 to 9 minutes per hold. As you know, beginners to yin, if this is something that you haven't done a lot of, then what I would suggest is you start at the lower end of that. Don't kind of go into a 7-minute hold straight away, because that will be a lot for the body to handle. You want to build up to that. And you'll probably notice that in a lot of my yin videos, to try and make them as accessible for everyone as possible, I usually hold poses for around about 2 to 3 minutes. Some kind of go into more 3 to 4, but just at that lower end of the scale, just so that everyone has an opportunity to get involved in the practice and get something from it. So we're not also moving from pose to pose in rapid succession. You'll find that it's quite a gentle transition from pose to pose. We're moving through everything slowly and gently so that the main focus of the practice is around stillness. It's around letting gravity help us to get deeper into the poses. It's just around ease rather than around kind of challenging yourself too much. Having said that, Yin can be very challenging in its own way. You know, you're increasing sensation into parts of the body that you might not usually have that kind of sensation in. Anything where we're holding a pose for a longer period of time invites or can invite some discomfort. So one of the things that I always say in my videos is, you know, listen to your body, do what feels right for you. We will not all look the same as we go through a Yin Yoga practice, and nor should we. It should be about listening to your body, taking it as far as feels good for you, because ultimately we still want this to feel good. It doesn't have to be something that feels uncomfortable. So we're kind of chasing a little bit of discomfort because inevitably that will come from just holding some poses a little bit longer, but we're not looking at pain. We're not looking at anything that makes a pose too uncomfortable to hold. And one of the great things in Yin that can indicate to you if maybe you've gone a bit too far or you've held something for a little bit too long is if it becomes difficult to take those really nice, full, gentle breaths. If at any point that breathing just becomes a little bit harder, or you're kind of battling against the breath rather than really absorbing and sinking into it, then chances are you've maybe gone a little far into the pose, pull out a bit, or maybe it's just gone on a little long for you, in which case come out of it and just sit in stillness until we move on to the next pose. So those are some of the main differences and the key differences, I guess, in terms of how we move into the shapes, what the shapes are designed to do for us in Yin Yoga. And I guess the other main difference for me is what it allows for our mental health and for our mental well-being. The opportunity to sit in stillness and focus in on the sensation in the body, the breath, is something we don't get a lot of time for in day-to-day life. So I really see a Yin Yoga practice as an opportunity for excellent self-care. It gives you, you know, half an hour, 40 minutes to carve out of your day where you're in stillness, you're focusing in on your body, what your body can do, rather than having, you know, every single thought in your mind flowing through you. So it's an opportunity to try and achieve stillness in the mind, to try and go a little bit further inwards and just concentrate on what you're doing at that present moment. And that is easier said than done. And I will find that hard in some practices, and I know you will all find that hard at points as well, where you've got other things on your mind, you've got other things that you know you're about to do or you've done earlier in the day, you're still thinking about them. So that can be tough. And I think at the start and when you're just beginning with Yin Yoga, that can be really difficult. So kind of don't beat yourself up about it. The exact opposite of what you need to do is just take your time and just go with it, you know, and eventually in time, as you get more and more used to the practice, you will find that it's far easier for you to relax and just ease into it. If I think back to before I started to do Yin Yoga, I was someone who really struggled to relax, really struggled to take time for myself, really struggled to just take the pace down a little bit. And I think for me, it's been a really amazing kind of tool to have when the mind just needs to quieten down a little bit, and when I need just that little bit of peace and time to not think about all the other things in life that we all think about. So take your time, bear with it. It will come, you know, it will become easier and easier for you to get into that mindset. And the best tip I can give you when you're in a Yin Yoga posture is to really focus in on how your body feels. Really try and think about what that sensation means to you, where the sensation's coming from, how that feels, and also focusing in on the breath as well. You know, if you find that one of the great giveaways in Yin Yoga to show that you're not relaxing is if we start to find that we are bringing muscular effort into the practice. That's when you know that you're not quite in that kind of space of just easing and melting into the pose. So I often find for me, I'll know if I'm coming out of that headspace because I'll start to feel my neck, my shoulders and my jaw start to get a little tight, start to clench slightly. And if that starts to happen, that's a really good giveaway that you've kind of come out of that headspace, and you just need to kind of focus back in on the breath, situate yourself back in the posture that you were in, and yeah, come into stillness again. So that's a little bit of a whistle-stop tour to what Yin Yoga is all about, how it will feel, kind of what a traditional practice might look like for Yin Yoga. There's lots more I could tell you. There's lots more I could tell you about the history and the development of Yin Yoga as a practice, but maybe I'll save that for another video. So yeah, enjoy the videos that I've posted on this channel. Please subscribe if you can. That's really helpful. That allows me to continue to make more videos, to know that they're being enjoyed, and also it means that you won't miss any new ones that get put out. So please subscribe if you can, and I really hope you enjoy the videos on this channel. Thank you.